The morning sun cast long shadows across the Afghan mountains as Staff Sergeant Marcus Chen adjusted his rifle scope one final time. The Barrett M82 felt familiar in his hands, like an extension of his body after 12 years of military service. His spotter, Corporal Rodriguez, lay beside him on the rocky outcrop, scanning the valley below through high-powered binoculars. "Movement at 11 o'clock, 800 meters," Rodriguez whispered into his radio. "3 insurgents moving toward the village." Marcus tracked his scope to the location. Through the crosshairs, he could see armed figures approaching the small settlement where American medics were treating wounded civilians. His finger found the trigger as he controlled his breathing, just as he had done countless times before. The shot rang out across the valley, followed by 2 more in quick succession. 3 targets neutralized, another successful mission protecting innocent lives. Marcus began to pack his equipment, unaware that this would be his final mission on Earth. The extraction helicopter arrived 30 minutes later, its rotors kicking up clouds of dust as it touched down on the makeshift landing zone. Marcus and Rodriguez climbed aboard with their gear, joining the other soldiers from their unit. The Chinook lifted off, beginning its journey back to base. Marcus stared out the window at the rugged landscape below, thinking about his wife Sarah and their 2 young children waiting for him back in Colorado. In 3 weeks, his deployment would end, and he could return to teaching his son how to throw a football and helping his daughter with her homework. The missile struck without warning. The explosion tore through the helicopter's rear section, sending twisted metal and flames through the passenger compartment. Marcus felt the aircraft spinning violently as it plummeted toward the earth. The last thing he remembered was the screaming of wounded soldiers and the taste of blood in his mouth before everything went black. High above the crash site, invisible to human eyes, a massive spacecraft observed the destruction with clinical interest. The vessel stretched nearly 2 kilometers in length, its hull composed of materials unknown to Earth science. Within its command center, tall humanoid figures with elongated skulls and pale, translucent skin studied the wreckage through advanced scanning equipment. Commander Zeth Kara of the Hegemony 4th Fleet turned from the tactical display to address his science officer. "Status report on the indigenous population conflict. The local insurgent forces successfully eliminated the aircraft using one of our provided energy weapons," replied Science Officer Veltar, his large black eyes never leaving his instruments. 17 of the military specimens were killed instantly. However, 1 survivor remains. Zeth Kara's expression remained neutral as he processed this information. The Hegemony had been observing Earth for decades, occasionally providing advanced weaponry to various factions to accelerate human conflicts. Their goal was simple: reduce the human population through warfare before beginning formal colonization. Humans had proven to be an unusually aggressive and resourceful species. Unlike most civilizations the Hegemony had encountered, humans seemed to thrive in combat situations, developing increasingly sophisticated weapons and tactics. The Galactic Council had decided that direct confrontation would be too costly, so they chose subtlety instead. "Show me the survivor," Zeth Kara commanded. The main display shifted to show Marcus lying unconscious in the burning wreckage, his body broken, but still breathing. Blood seeped from multiple wounds, and his right leg was clearly fractured. Around him lay the bodies of his fellow soldiers, their weapons scattered among the debris. "Curious," muttered Veltar as he studied the readings. "This specimen's vital signs suggest he should have died from his injuries, yet his biological functions remain stable. His neural activity patterns are also unusual." Zeth Kara studied the human more closely. Like all members of his species, he possessed limited telepathic abilities, allowing him to sense basic emotions and mental states. What he felt from the unconscious human surprised him. Despite the trauma and pain, there was no fear, no despair. Instead, he sensed something that roughly translated to determination mixed with protective anger. "Bring him aboard," Zethkara ordered after a moment of consideration. "I wish to study this specimen more closely." "Commander, protocol dictates we should eliminate all survivors to maintain secrecy," Veltar reminded him cautiously. "I am aware of protocol," Zethkara replied sharply. "However, this human exhibits interesting characteristics. We may learn valuable intelligence about their military capabilities." The transport beam engaged, and Marcus's unconscious form materialized in the ship's medical bay. Automated systems immediately began treating his wounds with advanced healing technology, sealing cuts and mending broken bones with microscopic nanobots. As the healing process continued, Zethkara reviewed the human's military record, which their intelligence systems had accessed from Earth's computer networks. Marcus Chen had served with distinction in multiple combat zones, earning commendations for marksmanship and tactical leadership. His service record showed an impressive number of successful missions and enemy casualties. "Fascinating," Zethkara mused as he read the data. "This specimen has eliminated over 200 enemy combatants during his service period. His accuracy rating with ranged weapons exceeds 98%. Veltar looked up from his medical monitors. "Commander, the human cellular structure is responding remarkably well to our healing technology. His recovery rate is approximately 3 times faster than our projections for his species. And his mental state? Stable, though I detect increasing neural activity. I believe he will regain consciousness soon." Zethkara nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps this human could provide valuable insights into their military mindset. Understanding their warrior psychology would be crucial for the eventual invasion. He had made the decision to spare this soldier's life for scientific purposes, never suspecting that this choice would ultimately doom his entire species. In the medical bay, Marcus's eyes began to flutter open. His enhanced healing had restored most of his physical injuries, but his memory remained intact. He remembered the missile strike, the crash, and the deaths of his brothers in arms. As consciousness returned, so did his soldier's instincts. The ceiling above him was unlike anything he had ever seen. The metal appeared to flow like liquid while maintaining its solid form, and soft blue lights pulsed rhythmically along strange geometric patterns. The air smelled sterile, but carried an unfamiliar metallic tang. Marcus remained perfectly still, controlling his breathing and keeping his eyes nearly closed while he assessed his situation. Through his peripheral vision, he could see strange instruments and displays that defied explanation. The technology around him was clearly far beyond anything on Earth. Alien abduction. The thought came to him with crystalline clarity. He had been taken by extraterrestrials, probably the same ones who had somehow provided advanced weapons to the insurgents. The missile that destroyed his helicopter had been too sophisticated for local forces to possess. Training kicked in immediately. He was now a prisoner of war in enemy territory, facing an unknown adversary with superior technology. His mission priorities were clear: gather intelligence, seek opportunity for escape, and if possible, eliminate high-value targets. A door that seemed to grow out of the wall itself slid open with a whisper-quiet hiss. Marcus caught sight of 2 tall, pale figures entering the medical bay. Through carefully controlled breathing, he maintained the appearance of unconsciousness while studying his captors. They were humanoid, but clearly not human. Nearly 7 feet tall, with elongated skulls and large dark eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their skin appeared almost translucent, showing faint patterns of what might have been blood vessels beneath the surface. They wore form-fitting garments that seemed to shift color slightly as they moved. The aliens communicated in a series of clicking sounds and musical tones that his mind somehow began to interpret. One was reporting on his physical condition, while the other asked questions about his mental state and potential intelligence value. Marcus listened carefully, his mind automatically filing away every detail. The medical equipment, The layout of the room, the number of exits, the apparent hierarchy between his captors. Most importantly, he began to understand their language through some kind of technological translation system that seemed to be embedded in the room itself. They were part of something called the hegemony. They had been manipulating human conflicts for decades, providing weapons to various factions to encourage warfare and reduce Earth's population. The ultimate goal was conquest and colonization. His fellow soldiers were dead. His helicopter had been destroyed by alien technology. Earth was under attack by an enemy that humanity didn't even know existed. As the aliens continued their discussion, Marcus made a silent promise to his fallen brothers and to his family back home. These creatures had made a fatal error by keeping him alive. They thought they could study him like a laboratory specimen, never realizing they had just given Earth's greatest marksman a front-row seat to their entire operation. The war between humanity and the hegemony was about to begin, and Marcus Chen intended to fire the first shot. Marcus remained motionless for 3 days, carefully observing the alien ship's routines while pretending to recover slowly from his injuries. The hegemony crew believed he was unconscious or heavily sedated, never suspecting that their own medical technology had accelerated his healing beyond their expectations. During this time, he learned their language through the ship's translation systems and discovered crucial intelligence about their operations. The vessel contained over 300 crew members, all part of an advanced scouting force preparing for a full-scale invasion of Earth. They had been manipulating human conflicts for 40 years, gradually weakening Earth's military capabilities while studying human combat tactics. Most importantly, Marcus discovered that this was just one of 12 similar ships positioned around Earth's solar system. The main invasion fleet wouldn't arrive for another 6 months, giving humanity time to prepare if they received warning. On the 4th day, Commander Zeth Kara entered the medical bay personally to examine his prize specimen. Marcus sensed the alien's approach and carefully regulated his breathing to maintain the illusion of unconsciousness. "Remarkable recovery rate," Zeth Kara murmured in his musical language as he studied the medical displays. His cellular regeneration exceeds all projections for this species. Science Officer Veltar joined his commander at Marcus's bedside. "Commander, I believe the specimen is ready for preliminary interrogation. His neural patterns suggest full consciousness, though he appears to be suppressing his responses." "Excellent. Begin the mind probe procedures. I want to understand how their military hierarchy functions and identify their primary defensive installations." Marcus felt a tingling sensation at the base of his skull as alien technology attempted to penetrate his thoughts. However, 12 years of military training had included resistance to interrogation techniques, including experimental methods. He had learned to compartmentalize his mind, creating mental barriers that protected critical information. The aliens' telepathic probing met layers of mental discipline they had never encountered. Where they expected to find easily accessible memories, they discovered only carefully constructed mental walls, protecting his most important knowledge. "Strange," Veltar reported with growing confusion. "The specimen's mind appears to be actively resisting our probe. This level of mental discipline is unprecedented among primitive species." Zeth Kara frowned as he studied the readings. Increase the probe intensity. Break through his mental defenses. The sensation in Marcus's head intensified, but his training held firm. Instead of resisting directly, which would reveal his consciousness, he allowed the aliens to access carefully selected memories. They saw his basic military training, routine patrol missions, and surface-level tactical knowledge. Nothing that would compromise Earth's defenses or reveal his true capabilities as a special operations marksman. After an hour of unsuccessful probing, the aliens withdrew their equipment in frustration. "This specimen possesses unusual mental fortitude," Zeth Kara admitted reluctantly. "Perhaps a different approach is required." "Commander, Shall I prepare a more aggressive interrogation protocol? No. We will wait until he regains consciousness naturally, then attempt traditional interrogation methods. Sometimes the primitive species respond better to direct communication. The aliens left the medical bay, unaware that their prisoner had been conscious throughout the entire process. Marcus had successfully protected Earth's military secrets while gaining valuable intelligence about hegemony technology and procedures. That night, as the ship's crew entered their rest cycle, Marcus made his move. The medical bay's security systems were designed to contain unconscious patients, not trained military operatives. Marcus had spent days studying the room's layout and identifying weaknesses in their surveillance technology. The aliens' arrogance had led them to underestimate human ingenuity. Moving with perfect silence, Marcus disabled the medical monitors using techniques learned during covert operations training. The alien technology was sophisticated, but followed logical patterns that his analytical mind could decipher. Within minutes, he had created false readings that would show him still unconscious and sedated. The medical bay's exit required a biometric scan from authorized personnel. Marcus had watched the aliens activate the door dozens of times, memorizing their hand positions and the specific pressure points they touched. Using a combination of medical tools and his own blood, he created a crude but effective bypass that tricked the security system. The corridor beyond the medical bay stretched in both directions, its walls glowing with the same flowing patterns he had observed earlier. Marcus moved like a ghost through the alien ship, his bare feet making no sound on the strange metal floors. His enhanced hearing, sharpened by years of sniper training, detected the subtle vibrations that indicated crew movement in adjacent sections. Navigation proved challenging, as the ship's internal layout defied conventional design principles. Passages curved and branched in ways that seemed to follow alien logic rather than human engineering concepts. However, Marcus's exceptional spatial awareness allowed him to create a mental map as he explored. His first objective was to reach the ship's communication systems. Earth needed warning about the impending invasion, and he was the only person in position to provide it. The challenge was accessing their technology with limited knowledge of their systems. After an hour of careful exploration, Marcus discovered what appeared to be a secondary communication station in an unmanned section of the ship. The console was smaller than the main communication systems he had observed, suggesting it might be used for routine transmissions rather than military communications. The alien interface consisted of flowing symbols and touch-sensitive surfaces that responded to pressure and movement. Marcus spent precious time experimenting with different combinations, trying to understand the logic behind their communication protocols. His engineering background, earned through night classes during his military service, helped him identify patterns in the system's responses. Success came unexpectedly when he accidentally activated what appeared to be an emergency communication protocol. The system suddenly began transmitting on multiple frequencies, searching for any available receivers. Marcus quickly realized this was his opportunity to contact Earth. Using his understanding of radio frequencies and signal patterns, Marcus managed to modulate the alien transmission to carry a basic message in Morse code. The signal was crude and would likely be dismissed as electronic interference by most receivers, but military communication specialists might recognize the pattern. The message was simple but crucial. Alien threat confirmed. 12 ships in system. Invasion 6 months. Advanced weapons. Prepare defenses. Chen alive behind enemy lines. He transmitted the message continuously for 10 minutes before the communication system automatically shut down, apparently completing its emergency protocol cycle. Whether the signal reached Earth remained unknown, but Marcus had done everything possible to warn his people. His second objective was gathering intelligence about hegemony military capabilities and weaknesses. The ship's database systems contained detailed information about their technology, fleet composition, and invasion plans. However, accessing this data would require penetrating their main computer network. Marcus spent the next 2 hours searching for a suitable access point. The aliens' computer systems were integrated throughout the ship, but most terminals required authorization codes that he didn't possess. Eventually, he discovered a maintenance terminal in an engineering section that appeared to have lower security restrictions. The terminal's interface was similar to the communication system, but more complex. Marcus experimented carefully, trying to avoid triggering security alerts while accessing useful information. His breakthrough came when he realized the terminal was designed for diagnostic purposes, allowing technicians to review system data without making changes. The intelligence he gathered was both fascinating and terrifying. The hegemony possessed technology centuries ahead of Earth's capabilities. Their weapons could destroy cities from orbit, their shields could deflect nuclear weapons, and their faster-than-light travel allowed rapid deployment of forces across vast distances. However, Marcus's military training had taught him that every technological advantage had potential weaknesses. As he studied their systems, he began to identify vulnerabilities that human ingenuity might exploit. Their weapons required massive energy sources that took time to charge between shots. Their shields were designed to deflect high-energy attacks, but might be vulnerable to sustained lower-energy bombardment. Most importantly, their faster-than-light communication systems operated on specific frequencies that could potentially be jammed or disrupted. Marcus was documenting these vulnerabilities when he heard footsteps approaching his location. The ship's crew was beginning their next duty cycle, and his presence would soon be discovered. He quickly erased his access logs and retreated toward the medical bay, moving swiftly but silently through the alien corridors. He reached his bed just minutes before Science Officer Veltar entered to check on his condition. Marcus had restored the medical monitors to their original settings and resumed his unconscious pose, but his heart was racing from the close call. "Commander," Veltar's voice carried a note of concern as he studied the readouts. "The specimen's vital signs show elevated stress indicators. His neural activity suggests he may be experiencing nightmares or psychological trauma." Zethkara's response came through the ship's communication system. "Expected reaction to our interrogation procedures. Continue monitoring, but do not intervene unless his condition becomes critical." As the aliens left him alone again, Marcus allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. He had successfully gathered crucial intelligence and transmitted a warning to Earth, all while maintaining his cover as an unconscious prisoner. The aliens still believed they held the advantage, never suspecting that their captive was already planning their destruction. But Marcus knew his greatest challenges lay ahead. He had identified potential weaknesses in hegemony technology, but exploiting those weaknesses would require careful planning and precise execution. He was one man armed with nothing but his training and determination, facing an entire alien civilization bent on conquering his world. The war for Earth's survival had begun, and Marcus Chen was about to prove that the greatest mistake the hegemony could make was underestimating human resolve. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus began his covert operations aboard the hegemony vessel. His nightly reconnaissance missions had given him complete knowledge of the ship's layout, crew routines, and critical systems. More importantly, he had been gradually sabotaging their equipment in ways that appeared to be random malfunctions. The aliens' arrogance continued to work in his favor. They attributed the increasing system failures to the stress of extended deep space operations, never suspecting sabotage from their supposedly unconscious prisoner. Marcus had learned to manipulate their technology with increasing sophistication, turning their own advanced systems against them. On Earth, his Morse code transmission had been received by a military listening post in Colorado Springs. Initially dismissed as cosmic interference, The signal's repetitive pattern eventually caught the attention of a communications specialist who recognized the systematic nature of the transmission. When decoded, Marcus's message had triggered the highest level of military alert in human history. The world's governments had mobilized with unprecedented cooperation, setting aside political differences to face the existential threat. Military installations were hardened, new weapons systems rushed into production, and emergency evacuation plans activated for major population centers. Most importantly, Earth's top scientists began developing countermeasures based on the intelligence Marcus had provided. Aboard the alien ship, Commander Zethkara was growing increasingly frustrated with the mounting technical difficulties plaguing his vessel. The ship's weapons array had experienced 17 separate malfunctions in the past week. Their navigation systems required constant recalibration, and the faster-than-light communication array had become unreliable. Science Officer Veltar, I want a complete diagnostic of all ship systems, Zethkara commanded during the morning briefing. These failures are becoming unacceptable. Commander, our technical teams have found no evidence of systematic problems. The malfunctions appear to be random equipment degradation, possibly caused by exposure to this system's unusual electromagnetic environment. Zethkara's large black eyes narrowed as he considered this explanation. Have you detected any anomalous energy signatures that might explain these phenomena? Negative, Commander. However, I should mention that the human specimen continues to show unusual neural activity patterns. His brain remains remarkably active for someone in his supposed condition. Perhaps it is time to wake him for direct interrogation. We need intelligence about Earth's defensive capabilities before the main fleet arrives. This conversation was being monitored by Marcus through the ship's internal communication system, which he had learned to access during his nighttime expeditions. He realized his time as a hidden observer was coming to an end, but he had already accomplished more than he had initially hoped. His sabotage efforts had disabled approximately 30% of the ship's combat effectiveness, and his intelligence gathering had revealed the locations of all 12 advanced scout vessels. Most importantly, he had discovered the timing and approach vectors for the main invasion fleet. That night, Marcus made his final reconnaissance mission with a specific objective in mind. He had identified the ship's primary weakness. Their faster-than-light drive contained unstable exotic matter that, if properly destabilized, could create a massive explosion. The challenge was triggering this reaction in a way that would destroy the ship while sending a warning signal to the other hegemony vessels. The drive chamber was located in the most heavily secured section of the ship, protected by multiple layers of security systems and automated defenses. Marcus had spent weeks studying the access protocols and guard rotations, identifying a narrow window of opportunity during the crew's sleep cycle. Moving through the ship's corridors one final time, Marcus felt the weight of his responsibility. The success or failure of his mission could determine the outcome of Earth's war against the hegemony. He was no longer just a soldier following orders. He had become humanity's secret weapon in a conflict that most of his species didn't even know was happening. The drive chamber's entrance required biometric authorization from senior officers. Marcus had anticipated this obstacle and prepared a solution using materials gathered during previous missions. Using alien medical gel and tissue samples he had carefully collected, he created a crude but functional biometric spoof that fooled the security scanners. The chamber beyond was a cathedral of alien technology. Massive crystalline structures pulsed with exotic energies, their surfaces covered in flowing symbols that hurt to look at directly. The faster-than-light drive occupied the center of the space, contained within multiple layers of force fields and protective barriers. Marcus approached the drive core with scientific precision, applying knowledge gained from his engineering studies and his observations of alien technology. The exotic matter containment system operated on principles that human science had only theorized about, but the underlying physics remained consistent across species. Working carefully to avoid triggering security alarms, Marcus began his sabotage of the containment field generators. He couldn't simply destroy the drive immediately. That would kill him before he could complete his mission. Instead, he programmed a delayed cascade failure that would give him time to reach his final objective. His true target was the ship's communication array. If he could access their quantum entanglement network during the drive's destruction, the explosion might create a signal that would reach other hegemony vessels instantaneously. But rather than delivering information, this signal would carry a weapon, a computer virus he had been developing using their own programming languages. The virus was elegant in its simplicity. It would infiltrate hegemony computer networks and gradually degrade their systems, creating failures similar to those he had caused manually on this ship. More importantly, it would transmit Earth's location and defensive capabilities to Hegemony High Command, but with carefully altered data that would make Earth appear far more dangerous than it actually was. Marcus reached the communication center as the first warnings began appearing on alien displays throughout the ship. His sabotage of the drive core had initiated a chain reaction that would reach critical levels in approximately 30 minutes. He had that long to upload his virus and prepare his final message for Earth. The quantum communication array was far more complex than the emergency system he had used weeks earlier. However, Marcus had spent considerable time studying its operation, and his enhanced understanding of alien technology allowed him to access its primary functions. First, he uploaded his virus into the Hegemony network, watching as it began replicating across their communication channels. The program would spread to every connected vessel and facility, creating systematic failures that would cripple their invasion preparations. Next, he composed a final message for Earth's military forces. Using the same Morse code technique that had worked before, he began transmitting detailed intelligence about hegemony weapons, ship locations, and invasion plans. This information would give Earth's defenders crucial advantages in the coming conflict. As he transmitted the data, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The hegemony crew had finally detected the drive core's instability and was scrambling to respond. Marcus could hear their musical language becoming increasingly frantic as they realized the magnitude of the crisis. Commander Zeth Kara's voice echoed through the ship's communication system as he ordered all crew to emergency stations. Engineering teams to drive chamber immediately. Begin emergency containment procedures. Science Officer Veltar's response carried a note of panic. Commander, the exotic matter containment is collapsing at an exponential rate. We cannot stop the cascade failure. Then prepare for emergency evacuation. Signal the fleet to maintain safe distance. Marcus smiled grimly as he continued his transmission. The aliens finally understood that their ship was doomed, but they still had no idea that their prisoner was responsible. Even now, they believed he was unconscious in the medical bay, never suspecting that Earth's greatest marksman had outmaneuvered their entire crew. The ship's structure began groaning under the stress of the failing drive core. Marcus could feel vibrations through the deck plating as exotic energies escaped their containment. He had approximately 10 minutes before the explosion would consume the entire vessel. His message to Earth was nearly complete. The transmission included detailed technical specifications for hegemony weapons, defensive systems, and faster-than-light technology. Human scientists would be able to develop countermeasures and possibly even reverse engineer some of their capabilities. With 5 minutes remaining, Marcus composed his final personal message. Using the ship's internal communication system, he recorded a message for his wife and children, explaining what had happened and why he wouldn't be coming home. He told them to be proud of him, that his sacrifice would help protect their world from an enemy they never knew existed. The recorded message was automatically stored in the ship's memory banks, where it would survive the explosion in an armored data core designed to preserve information for later recovery. Marcus hoped that someday, when the war was over, Someone would find his words and deliver them to his family. As the countdown entered its final minute, Marcus felt a profound sense of peace. He had accomplished everything possible under impossible circumstances. The virus spreading through hegemony networks would cripple their invasion fleet. Earth's military possessed detailed intelligence about their enemies' capabilities and weaknesses. Most importantly, humanity now knew what they were facing and had time to prepare. The explosion began in the drive chamber and spread outward at the speed of light. Exotic matter released energies that human science couldn't fully comprehend, tearing apart the fabric of space itself around the doomed vessel. The ship's hull vaporized instantly as reality warped and twisted under the assault of uncontrolled cosmic forces. The quantum entanglement array transmitted one final signal as it was consumed by the explosion. This signal carried Marcus's virus to 11 other hegemony vessels throughout the solar system, beginning a cascade of system failures that would leave them vulnerable to Earth's defenses. Across Earth, military installations detected the massive energy signature as the alien ship destroyed itself. Scientists studying the explosion's characteristics would later realize that someone aboard the vessel had deliberately caused the destruction, though they would never know the identity of their unknown ally. The war between humanity and the hegemony would continue for 3 more years. Earth's forces, armed with Marcus's intelligence and protected by his virus, fought with determination that amazed their alien enemies. Human ingenuity and adaptability proved superior to hegemony technology and arrogance, gradually turning the tide of the conflict. When the final hegemony ship surrendered, Earth's leaders established a memorial for all those who had died defending their world. Among the names carved into its surface was Staff Sergeant Marcus Chen, listed as missing in action during a classified operation. Only a few people knew the true extent of his sacrifice. Commander Zethkara's decision to spare an injured human marksman had indeed been the greatest blunder in hegemony history. By underestimating human capabilities and resolve, they had given Earth's greatest weapon the opportunity to destroy their invasion from within. The alien warrior caste would spend generations studying Marcus's tactics, trying to understand how a single primitive soldier had outmaneuvered their entire species. They learned too late that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers, but their refusal to surrender when protecting what they loved. Marcus Chen had proven that sometimes one person, armed with training, determination, and an unshakable sense of duty, could change the course of history itself. His sacrifice had saved not just Earth, but established humanity as a force to be respected throughout the galaxy.